We have guests in the studio this morning who are joining us, and we want to talk about technology, right? Yesterday we were talking about, is it possible really to have Africa's cheapest smartphone developed in the next 8 to 12 months? And we had a conversation with Latif in the studio. Now, today, we want to talk about virtual reality.
Eric, I acknowledge Latif Cherono, because Latif, for most people, that is you. There's no difference between Latif and Latif. You're here every day, okay? So this thing of you need to...
Yeah, just passing it on.
Yes, because it's like saying, yesterday we had a conversation with myself, and then... No.
I was here telling you about things.
Yeah, I was telling you about things. Yeah, no, please, carry on, Eric.
Latif Cherono,
thank you,
from
sir.
Gearbox,
Yes.
Europlacer,
Yes.
Very good. You could just continue.
Not
You okay?
Europlacer, it was called Euro what? Yeah, Europlacer.
Yes, Europlacer.
It was here yesterday. So today we will talk about virtual reality, and what virtual reality is all about. Virtual reality, CT, is that one we talked about earlier. Wear those glasses, wear the goggles, and then you just start seeing things.
You need to be, the issue of seeing things, Eric, a little clarity is needed, because the way you said it, and we do talk about people screaming rather, I thought, now, is this a horror movie? This is Zombie 3 and 4. I don't watch those things. But then I do know something about something called surround. The first time I experienced this, I was watching a movie, and I saw the plane coming towards me.
Yeah.
I was in a movie theater, and the
3D.
sound, I actually ducked, because as the plane got closer and closer, I thought this thing might land on my head.
And the sound was also
It was the sound that made the plane look that real.
And you forgot that you were in the theater.
No, I completely forgot. I'm ducking, and the thing is on the screen, for heaven's sake. So I'm taking the view that when we talk about virtual reality, this is going to be what I've just discussed amplified.
Let's see.
Yes.
Brian Afande is the co-founder and managing director for a company called BlackRhino VR. And he's here with Shamina Rajab, who's a communications and community manager at the same organization, BlackRhino VR. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
You're finally here.
Finally, man.
Mama, you made it.
I made it. I'm Lunje, I'm Luya. So, guys, I'm on radio. Lucia is in the building.
Oh, wow.
With a mic.
Yeah? With a mic.
Okay.
Shamina, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Yours is better than Brian's.
Okay, Brian, tuma salam.
Kwanza ningetaka kutuma salamu. Yo, big shout out to BlackRhino VR and everyone out there who's really supporting an XR ecosystem. And
What?
An XR ecosystem.
Okay, so let's just get into the basics then.
Yes.
What is BlackRhino VR?
Well, BlackRhino VR is what we call an extended reality technology business. We started out as a film business, creating 360-degree videos. But over the years, we've grown our service offering and proposition to create what we call to create solutions and content around extended reality media, which is an umbrella of technologies, that virtual reality being one of the technologies. So you have three key technologies. You have virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. So
Virtual, augmented, and mixed.
yes.
And then you also started by saying you're an extended reality.
Yes. So all those technologies are part of the extended reality.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the difference between virtual, mixed, and augmented?
Okay. Virtual reality, like you clearly said, it's a virtual environment that is computer generated. And for you to be able to interact with the technology, you need what you call a head-mounted display unit, like a VR headset, what we have here in the studio. So we brought you guys some VR headsets to go through the experiences. So VR locks you in an environment. It could be interactive or non-interactive, but using the aid of a virtual reality headset. On the other hand, augmented reality, augment is just an English word that means to extend. So you're using technology to extend something. So it's a digital impositions created in the real world. So let's say, for instance, I can use my mobile phone. We came with a tablet and mobile phones that we can be able to decolonize space and drop a hologram here.
Okay.
Yeah, I like what I'm hearing, but I need to understand it. Okay? Decolonize hologram. Space I know. Please explain.
Okay.
Yes.
So the space that we know it's spatial content. The space that we know is air, right? But what if I told you, using the aid of a mobile phone or a tablet or anything, I can be able to create a hologram of anything I want inside this studio?
What's a hologram?
So a hologram, in this case, is a virtual representation of something.
Of something.
Yeah. So for you to be able to have this virtual representation, you need light. So the only way, because we cannot create light here, so we need to pass it through a medium. So we have to pass it through, in this case, a mobile phone, for instance.
Okay.
So if I hold my tablet here or a mobile phone, I can be able to deploy, and that's what we mean decolonizing space. Because the idea behind space has always been that space cannot be repurposed. But the idea behind the technology itself is I can use a tablet, a mobile phone to put a museum inside this space and subsequently decolonizing this space from what it exists. So right now, I can take the tablet and we can deploy a big museum here, and you can literally walk in it.
So our SpiceFM studio right now, the stage that we have here, there's nothing on the stage.
There's nothing.
But you can then create something that makes us feel that we're in a museum.
Yes.
And can we walk through that museum?
Exactly. You have the perception of depth, distance, height, and volume.
Okay. Why would you want to do that instead of walking into a museum?
Very good question. We go back to decolonizing space. Because, for instance, if you cannot walk into a museum, but you have access to a mobile phone, and first, when you're thinking of walking to a museum, there's certain barriers of entry. There's transport. I don't have money to get to the museum. I can't pay entrance. Maybe because there's distance associated with my movement there. You understand? But what if I could actually go into a platform on my mobile phone, click on it, and it can allow me to have a virtual representation of the museum that I could literally walk into it. So the idea behind it is also to use this technology to be able to bridge the gap that exists when people are trying to move. It's also very environmental friendly because you're looking at carbon footprint. How, as organizations, are we going to be able to reduce the carbon footprint in the world? So these technologies can help organizations pivot on it and make sure that these virtual experiences, for instance, one of the use cases is in education. Imagine if kids cannot go into a school trip based on issues. Let's say during COVID, a lot of individuals were not able to travel around. But what if I told you through the technology itself, you could wear a VR headset and actually go through a farm as a school trip without leaving the comfort of your seat?
Let's actually start with the basics. Using virtual technology, children could actually have been in a classroom.
Yes.
From home.
From home.
Just wearing the glasses, everybody in their own home, but they recreate the environment of their own classroom at school, but without going to school.
Exactly. And not just recreating the environment. What if I told you today that I'll take the three of you to Congo or to Nigeria? Shamina, some of the projects, Shamina is here, who can talk about some of the projects that we've worked on and where we're going to actually take you without you guys leaving this studio.
Don't take us to Goma. M23. All right, Shamina.
Yes.
So tell us some of those projects, and we can see, start connecting the dots of what this virtual reality is, augmented reality, and the reality.
Yes, maybe let me bank on what Brian had already started with education, right? In terms of creating content. So even with the new curriculum right now, a lot of students now need to be more immersed, if I would use that word, in what they're doing so that they can have a high retention rate of the knowledge they're getting, right? So if we could take cameras and go and capture how a farm works in terms of zero grazing or in terms of different ways of farming, irrigation, capture that in a 360 film and put HMDs, head-mounted display units, on children and immerse them in that environment rather than them reading a textbook word for word to memorize, their higher retention is that when they feel like they've experienced that experience, they have seen how the cows move from one place to another, how they eat, how zero grazing works. I feel like the retention rate for the children will be way higher, especially now with attention spans going way lower and lower and lower with so much digital and information overload with the internet, right? So it's also about how the child is learning and how this technology can help that retention rate get higher, and also for them to enjoy learning in general, right?
So apart from wearing these things on your head as a child, what's the difference between that and watching a video? So you've come with a screen in the classroom and you've played a video of cows grazing, and you're telling them, see that cow, that is zero grazing. You see that, that's paddocking. See that, that's how you feed the cows.
So there's three things that the technology has. So we're going to talk about agency, presence, and something called immersion. So when you're watching something on TV, this is what we call a linear platform. And a linear platform does not allow you to have what we call agency. Agency is the ability for you as an individual to move freely inside an environment, right? So using a VR headset, when you wear it, you have agency of an environment. So it's more immersive, it's more intuitive, it's more visceral, right? And then you go to something called presence. Presence is the ability of the technology to trick your mind and make you believe that you're present in an environment, right? Linear TV cannot do that, because linear TV will never trick your brain to believe that you're inside a park.
Well,
that
you just had CT.
CT was talking about 3D and he ducked.
Yes.
You see, and with 3D, as much as he's ducking, he's still holding his seat. He's still inside the theater. With this technology itself, you're actually inside the film or inside an environment. So this is what we call presence. And immersion is the ability of the technology to create the presence. So the fidelity of the technology itself, for instance, what we have here is the Oculus Quest 2. It's the best VR headset in the market, based on form factor, based on resolution, based on the spatial audio that allows you to feel present. So there's something called spatial audio. And spatial audio is what we call 360-degree audio. When you wear the VR headset, you really feel like you're immersed. And when you have this trifecta combined into any technology that exists in humankind to date, it's the only technology that can be able to do that. And there's a huge distinction between immersive media and linear media.
So who can benefit from it? Because if we just listen to the words that we're hearing now, it sounds as though it comes with a pretty price tag, that anybody who's going to go through this experience must then have a few coins to spare. Number one. Number two, if we've also talked about the fact that it allows you to do maybe what physical limitations such as spending on transport and other things would do, then there's also the side which, if you do not have access to this technology, the chances of you then being able to participate in it are much lower. So who benefits from this? And what must you have in order to be able to use it?
Do you want to take that, Shamina? I
Yes.
take it. Okay, first, I want to say something, that these technologies considered nascent still in the world, right? And because it's considered nascent, it also has certain barriers of entry to the technology itself. And you're so right. Access is one of the challenges. But allow me to also demystify the fact that this is not expensive technology. It's not. It's highly accessible. For instance, right now, for the listeners, go to YouTube, type on your search engine 360 video. Click on the 360 video. What will pop up is, what will be populated is a video that you can be able to scroll around in full 360 fashion. And what you need to be able to get through that experience is a cardboard, like a Google cardboard, not even this fancy VR headset. You just need a cardboard to put your phone inside the cardboard, and you can go through an immersive experience. Now, when you think about it, your phone has to have the right sensors. So you need to have two things as sensors. You need to have something called a gyroscope and accelerometer. And the only way you'll be able, let me slow down my roll. So your phone only simply needs to have the right sensors for you to go through these experiences. So once you type 360-degree video, like a 360 video, and you click on it on YouTube, you can be able to consume content that is already readily available on social and digital platforms. And these platforms have specific metadata that allows individuals, it's highly democratized. you can be able to go through this experience. So the barriers of entry, to be honest with you, are not more technological. The barriers of entry is more mindset.
Or awareness.
Awareness. We need to change because this technology is highly foreign. So in Africa, we have something called technology anxiety. Because we don't know this technology. We have to build technology trust to trust it, right? So the barriers of entry are usually reduced because it's not expensive to access this technology. The use cases who benefits, first, we're talking about all economic verticals can benefit from this. If we're talking about healthcare, education, entertainment, etc., all verticals can benefit. If we're talking about individuals who can benefit, I think the seismic shift really is within the educational sector. As much as other sectors can benefit from this, I believe the educational sector can really benefit from this.
So basically, all a school needs to do is invest in a couple of these, and then you do away with school trips.
Not do away. It's not here to replace life.
It's to complement.
It's to complement.
Yeah, it's to
You
complement.
remember kuitishwa pesa ya school trips.
Bwana, mtayarisha pesa kununua hii.
One off.
Let me explain something real quick. So when you're looking at technology, technology anxiety, the technology itself goes through a certain trajectory that can demystify its value. For instance, you see a newspaper, right?
Yes.
What if I told you right now, the technology that we have right now in the studio, I can be able to scan a newspaper and the newspaper comes to life? What if I told you that these billboards that you see all over Nairobi, digital infrastructure for billboards is going to be obsolete because your phone is pretty much the interface you need to scan a billboard and the billboard comes to life. This is augmented reality. You actually augment digital images superimposed in the real world. So the values of these are from marketing, advertising, telecommunications, like the whole value chain and spectrum really can benefit from the technology. And it's not magic, but I'll tell you something. We have the technology here in the studio, and I want to show you guys.
We want to take a break, and then during the break, take CT to the Smithsonian Museum.
We got you.
Create that augmented reality. And Nema, where do you want to go, City? World Cup.
You've forget World Cup.
Well,
You've chosen Smithsonian.
let's take this quick break. It's 9:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Brian Afande is the co-founder and managing director of BlackRhino VR, and Shamina Rajab is the communications and community manager at the same organization. We are talking about how virtual reality technology can be used in very many aspects of life. And he says, let's actually talk about education. How can it be deployed for education and make it much easier? How can it also be deployed in health? You mentioned health. I'd like to hear how that can be used. We can see how it can be used for marketing, how it can be used for very many other things. That break, we come back, we wear the things. We come back, wear it. Sawa, it's 9:30.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We're talking about virtual reality. So, Brian, you said it can be used in education. How can it be used in health?
So, one of the things, let's talk about also how we can be able to transition. Let me give you a classic example on how we even transition from education to health, and then we dwell on health, right? So there's people who have been historically marginalized, especially when it comes to the educational sector. Some of these people are called stupid in classes, but it's because they are not neurotypical. Their minds don't work like probably the rest of the minds. They're not stupid. They're just neurodivergent, right? People living with individuals within the autistic spectrum, ADHD and stuff like that. What if I told you that using the technology itself, you're going to be able to deploy experiences around mental awareness so that these kids the transition of some of these children moving from the classroom, from the outside environment to the classroom is usually very hard. But what if I told you using the technology, we can be able to use some of the experiences and some of the content for them to be able to transition into the class environment, for them to be more relaxed. For instance, one of the projects we are working with, there's a grant that we've just applied with the aid of Kenyatta National Hospital that allows surgeons to be able to wear a VR headset and carry out simulations of surgery. Without using physical cadavers to be able to do that. So this is just one of the classic examples where you can be able to deploy the technology in health spaces. One of the challenges we also have within the health sector is, for instance, cancer children within cancer wards. You know, there's something called distraction therapy that can allow these individuals to live outside the hospice walls because the hospice walls are quite traumatic. And imagine a child who has cancer and has been in those walls for like 2 years without leaving the hospice walls. And we can be able to put on this VR headset and take them to different places in the world, thereby making them see beyond these walls. I mean, this technology is so powerful. And the way it should be applied, really, when you're looking at the educational and the health sector, should be in a highly pragmatic way. For instance, like you see your colleague right now, he's in Nigeria.
City is all over.
City should actually tell us what he's experiencing right now.
So City is wearing this thing.
So you can tell us in
And
the
he's-
actual microphone, CT.
Once upon a time,
He's in Dandora right now.
what I'm actually seeing is not just a still picture. I can see people walking, and as I turn my head, I am actually literally moving through this area of Dandora, to the point where I can even tell you the name of the shops.
Wow.
Yes, I can even see sewage, raw sewage flowing by. I can see someone sitting behind building blocks. I can see matatus. I can even tell you the number plates on the matatus. I can even tell you the make of the matatus.
Are you walking?
No, I am actually observing it.
You're just standing.
Yes, I'm standing, and as I turn my chair, I'm actually turning my body and seeing what's around me. Then I'm looking at the dump site. I can even tell you some of the plastic and the names written on the plastic. I can even tell you, I can even see children playing next to the dump site. Yes, my goodness.
Imagine what this technology can actually do. And our challenge is there seems to be, when I talk about the seismic shift in education, the thing is, because this technology is considered nascent, the education, the institutions of higher learning are also underprepared for this technology itself. There seems to be a disconnection from the skills that are acquired in institutions of higher learning to the skills required in the market. And that's why our organization actually has a 60-40 sort of business model, where 60% is highly commercial projects, enterprise solutions that we build, but 40% is ecosystem building, where we're building, we're empowering the next generation of XR innovators out of Africa. So we have schools that are training women in tech, because the role of women in tech is vital to us. And such asymmetries, for us, we want to address those asymmetries, because we want to build this technology with women participating, not just them being at the relegated tail end
Not
of
just
the value chain.
consumers.
Not just consumers. So our project trains women at no cost. Based women from film-centered ecosystems, but then we also have developmental partners like Goethe Institute who are also supporting some of our projects. Yeah.
Welcome back, CT.
Let me tell you, when I turned around and then looked down, you know, I have never felt like I'm flying, but this time I have understood what it means to be flying, because it was like I was up here and I could reposition myself to an upright position and look and see what's ahead of me. But when I moved my head down,
so when you move your head down, it
it's
becomes
like
a bird's eye view.
A bird's eye view, and I'm looking down on this thing. The reality is, you actually feel like you're up there, and I started thinking, now, what if I fall?
So it's back to what Brian was saying: agency, presence, and immersion. That's exactly how.
Now I've gotten the agency. I've even understood the immersion.
And the presence.
Yes.
Presence, not yet.
No, presence I got.
Okay.
Yes, that one I got earlier. It's the immersion thing that I hadn't
But
quite
you're
got.
not.
But now I actually got it, because
You took it off.
you actually feel like there are some 4 young men kicking the ball around. You actually feel that you're literally next to them. You almost feel like telling them, kick it towards me. Yes.
Shamina, what video was he watching?
He was watching The Forgotten Ones.
What is that?
The Forgotten Ones is a documentary, a short documentary piece we did as BlackRhino VR, just to create awareness around the Dandora dump site specifically. So we actually collaborated with a spoken word artist, Mufasa the poet, and he actually personified the Dandora dam site using spoken word, and he sort of tells the viewer, the audience, how Dandora dam site affects the different factors around it. So how it affects the environment, how people benefit and lose from the Dandora dam site. Also, it sort of cries, it's like the Dandora dam site is crying out to you and telling you what are the things that are around it that need to be sort of spoken about and create awareness. This is one of the pieces that has actually gone to the United Nations General Assembly.
Yeah.
We actually screened it there to create awareness around the dam site and what it means if we completely eradicate the dam site, who is affected, right? How do these people, because the people who actually economically benefit from the dam site, you actually meet him in the piece. But also, it's also an ISO and it's also an environmental sort of vice, right? So it sort of creates a good conversation around what is the best way to sort of mitigate this issue of the Dandora dam site. So that is actually what was being watched right now. Yes.
So if you were to say, I mean, looking at what cities just experienced. So again, go over for us, what would be the difference, the fundamental difference, then going from just an experience to actual learning when we're talking about health and education, between that and watching a video?
So maybe
do you learn a different lesson, or are we saying that the mode of learning then would be different and that you're able to experience something on a higher level? What exactly are we saying here, and why would anybody latch onto it?
So maybe specifically with this piece, I would say it's the mode of learning, right? What the medium does in terms of resonating with someone, especially if they're looking at a story like Forgotten Ones. There's an emotive nature to this piece. So a lot of times when we're at experientials and showing this specific piece, especially to people who are driven by environmental fights and stuff, they are fully immersed. So they actually feel it. I don't know how it's the emotive nature, because you're completely immersed into something. You can actually completely resonate with the kids playing in the dam site. You're like, these kids are actually playing in the dam site, rather than something when you watch on TV. You watch it, retain it for a few minutes in your head, and sort of you forget it. But it becomes a memory, something that's etched in your memory because you feel like you experienced it.
Actually, what you said about the mind or the brain getting to a point where it actually believes what you're seeing and it believes you're on site. The thing that I kept waiting for and I didn't get was a smell of the dump site.
Thank you.
That's
the only thing remaining from reality.
Yes, because I kept feeling this. I ought to be getting the smell from this dump site, and I wasn't.
Sort of
and now that I'm sitting here and I've removed those huge goggles, what's happening is that I'm actually feeling like I have physically left the place I was in, and I'm now back in the studio. Because
place.
When I was watching, I was actually not in the studio.
I thought you were going to say when I was there.
Exactly.
Yes, I was. I'm. As we're talking, this is what my mind is telling me, that okay, now you've left Dandora. You're now back in the studio.
So connect for me, CT, from that experience.
Yes.
Do you see children or learners? Let's not just talk about children. Learners of whatever age using this to actually learn better?
It would be an extremely impactful experience. The reason why I'm saying this is because a learner's mind has the benefit of versatility and believability. Mine is jaded, and it's tired, and it's cynical. Okay? Now, imagine someone who is eager to learn, doesn't know anything, and wants to learn, and instead of telling them, and now, look at, they can actually see the now, and they look at, they're experiencing it. It's many things combined into one. The impact in my mind would be profound.
Wow.
So instead of but then there's a cost here, because let's say the story of Luanda Magere.
Yeah.
You write a book and you tell the story. If you were to tell the story of Luanda Magere via virtual reality, where then the children feel that they are taken to that age where this is Luanda Magere, and somebody goes and spears his shadow and Luanda Magere dies, and getting into that immersion, it'll cost you a lot to produce that, won't it?
It would, but it also costs you a lot to produce a film on linear. There's always a cost attached to it. And I feel like the benefit, for instance, let me give you something that I've practically done in my house. I have two sons, 6 and 4 years old. And one of my sons was learning about space exploration. So I took this VR headset, I got content that we hadn't produced. It's online content about the USS. It's
The Oscar-winning.
It's an Oscar-winning experience where you get into a spaceship in zero gravity.
Yeah.
And I put this headset on my son. My son right now can tell you stuff about zero gravity. He's only 6 years old. And my wife is a teacher. And my wife looked at the power of the technology and she said, babe, this is amazing that my son can actually tell you right now that he sat in a spaceship. He was with the captain, he had a crew, and they were in space. And this was the experience based on his perspective from above and out of this world.
Right.
And when you look at the technology itself, let me also say that this is part of what we call the fourth industrial revolution. And the fourth industrial revolution, believe it or not, will fundamentally change the way we relate to each other, the way we work, the way we socialize, everything. The way we respond to it as Africans is so important. In its scope, complexity, and scale, we need to look at it as the future of the internet. So you have the fourth industrial, from the first industrial revolution to the fourth. Now we are at a point where the fourth industrial revolution is being propagated by the internet. So when you hear about the Internet of Things, blockchain, you hear about AI and all this stuff. This is part of the fourth industrial revolution. Now what has happened over the years is there's mammoths of companies that have closed down because they didn't innovate enough to be part of this revolution. This technology, by all means, is the interface of the fourth industrial revolution. So if there's a young person, or even there's an older person listening to this out there, we really need to understand what it means to be in the fourth industrial revolution, and how we respond to it as Africans is so important. And that's why this technology right now is at the cornerstone of the fourth industrial revolution, because it's how the different applications, blockchain, Internet of Things, will interface with the real life. Imagine having AI that when you wear the VR headset, having AI that can actually be able to simulate some of these experiences based on the things that you're thinking about in your mind. This is where the technology is going, and this is where we are in the global scale.
It's messed up, man.
Even with Eric's glasses, you could have wearables and have his notes in his glasses. With
Exactly.
reality.
Yeah, that's mixed reality, because Shamina, you have a very strong point. Like Eric, just with your wearables, you could superimpose digital images while talking to your colleagues here, but then you're just controlling everything using your wearables. Exactly.
I will tell you about state capture.
State
And I'm just
capture.
looking at you. Not
And you're
removing
looking
any
at
notes.
it. A fancy teleprompter. Yeah.
Tell us then about the augmented reality. This thing that you're saying that you can, what was it? Decolonize space. Left, and the other. Can you do it here?
I'm doing it right now.
And Edna, you'll be able to capture it. It can be captured on camera.
Yes.
Okay, Edna.
So,
Zoom into that.
so this is an app. You see, you can see the environment, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to walk through a real estate property that we built. This is part of decolonizing space. Look, I'm actually walking in the property. I can change the color.
Boss, that's on your screen. It's not in our studio.
Bro, imagine that. Wait, you see that SpiceFM on this side?
Oh, yeah.
If I walk in, the curtain opens itself because we built sensors inside. It opens and you can see that. So imagine when you're selling houses off plan, and you could actually decolonize the space of your house, where you could walk through a house that you're trying to purchase, and literally walking through the house, change the floors, the texture of the tiles, texture of the seats, colors, everything.
I think even for architects, right?
Yeah.
With your clients, and you would like them to imagine the house that they're building. If you're looking at flat land with no house, and you want them to imagine how their house would look like, imagine if they could generate their house in this digital format, and have you walk through your house and actually feel how your floors will be, how high your ceilings would be, how the bathroom would look. I feel it'll make also the architect's job easier, because there won't be much changes, you know?
Wow. I'm going back to education.
Yeah.
You know, because if you look at gaps that were felt during COVID-19, for example, and presenting opportunities where children can learn, however, the infrastructure upon which technology like this can sit is fundamental to its success.
Yeah.
That you can have it exist, but that then the minority of those in the country, and we're speaking about Kenya today, are those who would be able to benefit from it. How would it be then made available, across board? If we're saying as well that the cost is not prohibitive.
So, with education, I think we also need to look at educational reforms. Sit down with the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development and make them understand that this revolution is here. And how can we create reforms? One thing, by the way, as a parent, I would say is I'm not content and confident that there's the creative disciplines, music, arts and crafts, were relegated to after-school activities. They used to be part of the curriculum. They're relegated to after-school activities. Then that's if you can be able to afford it, right? But if you think about these experiences, they cut across all different subsectors of education. And we need to look at how we can be able to reform some of these policies that have been that are in place right now, for them to understand that a lot of the young people within the culture and creative industries are actually trying to, with their particular skill set, from graphic designers to developers. You need a situation where creating the content and consuming the content doesn't have a high barrier of entry. So that the idea behind it is you have a lot of content that people can be able to create and also consume at the same time. This is the ideal situation when it comes to mass adoption. I think what you're probably talking about is some form of adoption to it. And how are you going to be able to democratize this sort of adoption so that a lot of people can be able to either consume or create the content?
Well, sure, but look at the gaps that we have in education today. And just talking about that gap that we had between 2020 and 2022, for which we're still reeling off the effects of today. And I'm still sticking on education because we talk about the fact that technology can come in, and which it has done in the Western hemisphere quite significantly. But if we are saying today that such a thing can be adopted in Kenya, in other countries, the infrastructure into which it will be embedded, it is absolutely necessary that it is of the same, if not more superior stock. And if that does not exist, then we're playing in waters that, will be difficult to navigate.
What you say is true, Ndu.
I agree.
But consider, for instance, you're talking about a population of people without considering the literacy levels when it comes to simply understanding technology. Because the big barrier, if you ask me...
Or even literacy. You're going to technology. Simple reading and writing and comprehension.
You see, we're talking technology. The acceptance of it has to do with not just appreciating it, but being willing to actually understand it. Because if it's available. I have phones... and I send SMSs. I've discovered something called the internet. I figured that one out. I've got WhatsApp. I figured that one out.
Well done.
And then M-Pesa, that one I know because I use it a great deal. But there are things on that phone that are completely alien to me. And yet, there are things that one could use. How do you get... Because decision-making requires support, and that support requires a certain acceptance of certain knowledge.
Exactly my point.
How do we even move and get to the point where we start thinking and talking about adapting this when we have this entire population of decision makers who are like me?
An inch.
This
is it. And this is the infrastructure that I'm talking about. That you latch onto, that you hook onto, whether it's an attitude, whether it's a financial commitment or responsibility, whether it is policy issues. This is what I'm saying.
I agree. And also, to be honest with you guys, it's been quite a challenge also speaking to organizations that have, let's talk about technical infrastructure. I don't want to mention the telcos, but let's talk about technical infrastructure. These are perfect use cases of 4G and 5G. But some of these organizations also, in terms of some form of gatekeeping sort of, what do we call it? You understand? So it's also increasingly difficult for organizations like us to have discourse with these organizations based on the fact that there's certain dynamics, maybe some form of red tape or political dynamics within these organizations. But this is the classic example of how infrastructure 4G and 5G can help propagate and lead to mass adoption.
You know what it is? It is basically lack of awareness. So you know what you know, you're very passionate about it, and then you're going to speak to somebody who doesn't know, and it'll take a while before they actually can relate to what you're talking about. And then they're looking at this and thinking, so cost implications, so cost of adoption, so cost of rolling it out. So how do I even now, if it's taking me this long to get convinced to understand, these guys, if I take their idea, then it's upon me to go and convince my higher ups. It's a whole long journey. So have you come up with a better way of communicating and just making it easier for people to understand and know this is what we're talking about? We can talk to wider audiences so people get to understand.
So what we did is we invested in a space in Westlands at the mall. So we're calling this space Out Reality. And within this space, we actually have demystification sessions for different people from different verticals. We say today we are going to invite people from the media. And we are going to invite people from the media and demystify the technology to them. Today we are going to talk to different marketing executives. And they're either going to come to a space, which they do, or we go to their institutions. And we have what we call demystification sessions. So we have what we call the 4 Ds as BlackRhino that is really underpinning our brand promise. The first D is to democratize the technology, make it affordable and accessible to people. And by accessibility, I mean hardware, software, and knowledge about the technology. The second D is to demystify. Because of technology anxiety, we try to demystify the technology itself by speaking about it, by showing different use cases of the technology. And the third D is to deploy. And deployment is actually building the blocks of the future. So we recently got a HIVA grant, and the HIVA grant is based on us building the first platform in the world that is a financial inclusive platform that is a drag and drop platform for augmented reality, where the technical capabilities of deploying this technology has been limited to drag and drop like your PowerPoint presentations. So we actually got funding to help us do that. Right. And the fourth D is to design. We really believe that the human being is at the core, at the epicenter of this technology. Everything has to be backward engineered from the human being. So using human-centered design, all these experiences are created around human beings because we are the only ones that enrich the technology itself. So we've been addressing this in terms of how we speak about it, and thank you to SpiceFM for giving us the opportunity to actually come and showcase and speak about it, create discourse around it. I'm actually getting text as we speak from people I haven't heard from in 10 years, saying, man, this is where you disappeared to. So it's a really good opportunity for us to be able to speak about it.
And thank you very much for coming as well.
Thank you for having us.
Brian Afande is the co-founder and managing director of BlackRhino VR. Shamina Rajab is the communications and community manager of BlackRhino. I have to say it slowly.
BlackRhino
VR.
Thank you very much.
We've been looking at these gadgets and using the Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra is what Brian was using to show us this augmented reality. So the Tab with a 14-inch screen works very well.
14.6.
0.6. Thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation. Join us again tomorrow morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Have yourselves a lovely day. Good